without killing the other ones that are important. How to give penicillin without destroying all the stomach flora and having to build them up again with acidophilus and stuff. So this is why in the Taoist Chinese view of nature and the relation of nature to human politics, they set as fundamental the principle called Wu Wei, Wu Wei, which means non-interference. Not quite what we mean by laissez-faire, but rather close to it. That is to say, when you act upon nature, and you must, you can't help but interfere. There is no way of isolating yourself from the world. Every time you breathe, you interfere with something, see? But the art of Wu Wei is that when you interfere, endeavor to do so by going with the grain of things. In other words, if you want to split wood, split it with the grain. Don't try to split it across the grain. And likewise, when you want to pick a fight, don't use violence, but use the other person's violence to bring about his downfall. That's judo. And that judo is applied Wu Wei. Sailing is Wu Wei. As distinct from rowing, which isn't. So then, the Taoists, you see, recognized that there is this universal organism. And they thought of the cosmos as a great organism without a boss. There is no one in Chinese philosophy making the world happening or ordering it. There is no, as it were, central principle in the middle, which sends out commands to all the subordinate parts. But rather, that the thing organizes itself. Their word for nature being ziran, meaning what is so of itself. So they saw the whole cosmos as a self-regulating organism, and they further saw that the individual is not merely a part of that organism. He is an expression of the whole thing. And the whole depends upon this expression, just as much as the expression depends upon it. And that was the principle of mutual interpenetration, which is called in, well, it's more familiarly known by its Japanese name, Jiji Muge. The principle of the network. Between thing event and thing event, there is no obstruction. But you see, it remains to us a bit of a puzzle to say that all this is an intelligence, because we can think of all kinds of objections to it. We can think, if by some conscious science we were able to construct the universe, we would do it a little differently. We would have improvements to suggest upon mosquitoes. We would, perhaps a great surgeon might suggest that the human body be organized a little differently. We can think of dozens of things. But you find the curious thing is this. When you try to think out carefully how to improve the world, and then you realize is what the consequences of your suggestion would be, you wouldn't like all of the consequences. Hence the saying, be careful of what you desire. You may get it. And then one invites the individual, and this is one of the great things to do, to suggest another kind of universe. What kind of universe would you design if you were God? And I recommend, I'm not going to go into this because it's a long story, but I thoroughly recommend it as an exercise in thought. Model your own universe and see what comes out of it. Because I can only tell you that you will eventually discover that you will model this one. And you'll find out, you see, that it's based on certain absolutely fundamental principles, which of course includes the game of hide and seek. And now you see it, now you don't, which is vibration, which is the same thing as energy. You've got to begin with that. But once you start with that, it implies the rest. Because all that we see around us is just a fantastic combination of black and white elements, of what the Chinese call the yin and the yang, the negative and positive forces. And it all leads to this, but in an incredible dance. So then, you have difficulty, though, of course, in seeing the world as an organism. Because when you look out at the stars, you are in roughly the same situation or relationship to what you are seeing as when a physicist studies the constitution of the atom. He will make a map of the behavior of the nucleus in which there will be various rotating particles or wavicles. And you will see something which looks like a mathematical design and doesn't look like an organism. Because we expect an organism to be a kind of gooey thing with blood and flesh and wriggles and so on. So if you looked only through the microscope, you wouldn't see the organism. But when we look out at the rest of the universe, we are, as it were, sitting down on one of those electrons, looking through a microscope at the rest of it. And therefore we don't see the sort of total design it makes up. That's much too far away from our conscious inspection. And this is one of the reasons, then, why it's difficult for us to formulate the idea that there is an intelligence operating here. Because all we see is a firework display, this tremendous display of radioactive mud and gas. And one would say, well, it's just a kind of a contraption that happened to arrive there, and that's all there is to it. But the funny thing about man is that he can put himself down and say that he is an accident, a kind of colloidal chemical accident that occurred on this very unimportant rock, rotating around a lesser star on the fringe of one of the minor galaxies, and that this is where we are, and that the universe does not give a damn about us. Yet the odd thing is that this wretched little chemical thing can reflect an image of the whole cosmos in its vastness inside his head, and can know he's there. And that means, though, that this thing, however small in dimensions, is vast in comprehension. And what scale are you going to attach the word importance to? Mere size or degree of comprehension? By degree of comprehension, man is huge. By that scale. So then, if the principle is simply that if we can see from a perfectly physical point of view, what we would call a strictly scientific point of view, that the individual organism goes with its environment in just the same way as bees go with flowers. And flowers in their turn go with grubs. And grubs in their turn go with birds. And so on, all the way through. Then, when you want to define yourself, you cannot say that I am just what is inside the skin. because what is inside the skin goes with everything outside it and constitutes a single complex field of diversified behaviors, diversified processes. You look at that then from a strictly physical point of view, and there it is, this network. But then the trouble comes up is, you say when you've studied that and you've read all the books on ecology and botany and zoology, astronomy and so on, you say, yes, I see that. That's quite true theoretically. But I would like to be able to feel that this is so, as mystics report that they have felt it. To have that kind of experience in which the network is absolutely clear. Because you see, if we don't take it that far, if we know about it theoretically only, the theoretical knowledge is not going to have much effect on what we do. But knowledge